I was in high school when Pearl Harbor was attacked, and it wasn't too long after that. Like I still had 2 years of high school to go. I wanted to fly in the Navy when I got out of high school, so I volunteered and took a test. I think they called it a V-12 or something, Navy Air Cadet training. I took the test, but I never heard, and ended up getting out of high school, and they were ready to take me in the Army. So I actually went downtown to go in the Army, and while there in the lobby there, they come out and said that we've been losing so many guys in the Navy that if you want to go into the Navy, you can volunteer. We'll give you another test and take you into the Navy. So that's how I ended up going to the Navy and went up to Great Lakes boot camp. And at boot camp there, we were there 6 weeks and had a great commander. He worked us hard. Even when somebody did something wrong, he goes out there at 2 in the morning, we're marching around because somebody did something wrong, you know. So you learn to keep your eye on these other guys and keep them straight. And after 6 weeks, I got out of boot camp and had a week off. So I went home for a week, and I thought, this is great. Go 6 weeks and then get a week off. But that was the last week I had for the next almost 2 years. Never got home after that. So you want me just to keep going?
Yeah. So then you finished boot camp, and then you went to, is it Oklahoma from there?
Yeah. From there, I because of the airplanes and stuff and training, I volunteered for that, and they sent me to Norman, Oklahoma to a big Naval Air NATTC, Naval Air Technical Training Center. That's what it was, and that was very, very tough. We had usually up in the morning like 5 o'clock, and usually cleaning the floors and sandpapering them and everything at 11 o'clock at night. And they kept going on us, and actually 2 guys in our barracks couldn't take it and killed himself. One hung himself in the barracks and one in a tree outside the place. But after I got through there, then I volunteered to fly, and they sent me up to Whidbey Island, Washington, out in Puget Sound there. And so I was there for a couple of months of a lot of shooting. We used a double-barrel shotgun, and they used the trap shooting from the front, and the others from the side, skeet shooting. So at the first, guys that didn't know how to hold a gun and let it slam against their shoulders, they had shoulders that were twice as big as normal. They were hurting like crazy. But and then when we first started, and our shooting wasn't that good, you know, not accurate. But after we did all that shooting in all different positions and different things, we really got good at it. They on the skeet shooting, they would pull a birdie from both sides, and you'd have to catch one and then catch the other one before it hit the ground, and we got good at that even. So after I graduated from there, they sent me down to Crow's Landing, California, and I was put into a squadron, B-24 squadron. The Navy had B-24s too, like the Army Air Corps, and the training there was really good too. I really had great training. We were there a couple of months in training and practice bombing and shooting. We actually got so good that we did a lot of bombing in some of the off bays around San Francisco, and we would drop a smoke bomb down in the water down there, and a lot of times we'd circle around and we'd catch that little smoke bomb even. So we were really getting good at shooting.
What do you mean you catch the smoke bomb?
Smoke bomb would go down into the water, and you could see the smoke coming up, and then we'd fly and then shoot down at the...
Oh, drop another one?
Yeah, and hit it from the airplane.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a really... it had to be accurate to do that, yeah. And so we did that. A lot of times we flew out over the ocean and got the navigator to get some experience. We'd take different routes out and come back in, and a lot of times out there we'd get on the way back in, we'd be fogged in, and we'd have to go down to Fresno or some other place and land, because we couldn't land at Crow's Landing. At Crow's Landing, I went out for the basketball team, and first night out there, always in the service, you'd ask the guy, "Where are you from? Where are you from?" You know. So then the guy tells me he's from Chicago. "Oh, yeah, me too." "Where'd you go to church?" "Midwest Bible Church," he says. So I said, "Oh, great, I go to Salem, and we know Midwest good." So I got to be really good friends with this fella, Freddie Holmquist from Midwest. So we played on a basketball team, and we're together. But he was in the ground crew. So when we left to go overseas, he was still stationed at Crow's Landing in California. So we flew to Kaneohe in Oahu, on Oahu. Kaneohe was a naval, not a navy, but a Marine Air Base. And we practiced there and did bombing and gave the navigator some good practice. We'd fly down to Hilo on Big Island and take different routes down and stuff.
But before that, your navigators were only 90 days on the job, right? And
yeah,
sure they would make it?
Yeah, he was the weak spot on the plane, actually, because the pilot was experienced before he went in, so he was really a good pilot. Except once in a while he'd have a little to drink in his canteen, and with the lighter air, you could smell that all through the airplane. You know, oh, this is going to be something. So we had some experiences, like flying underneath the Golden Gate Bridge with this big tail on our airplane, and flying over Yosemite, and coming back with little branches and stuff in our wheel wells and stuff. So, yeah, those kind of days were pretty good. And once in a while, too, we would, because he was, our pilot was the pilot that worked with the co-pilots to get them so they could get registered as pilots. And sometimes those things got pretty exciting too. We'd be taking off, and he'd slip the throttle into neutral or something like that. And the pilot, being a co-pilot, not expecting it, and then giving it everything. And so those were some pretty exciting times too. But after we left Oahu and Kaneohe base there, we went. We're going out to our first permanent, base. So we flew from Kaneohe to a little island called Johnston Island, and just stayed overnight, fueled, and then went the next morning. We flew down to Kwajalein in the Marshall Islands. Kwajalein and Eniwetok was places they did some of that testing for the atomic bombs and stuff. So my position was the top gunner up in the turret up on top, but I wanted to see things around, so I got down out of that, and I'm looking out of the side turret, looking around, and it wasn't my job, but I noticed that the wheels were not locked down. So I called right away because we were coming in on landing, and I called the pilot right away, and he just gave it everything, and he was able to pull up before we hit the ground. Because if we would have hit the ground without them locked, they would have buckled, and we'd have tumbled down the runway and probably started on fire and probably been killed.
So that took you about an hour, right, to get those down?
Well, what we did then, excuse me, yeah, we got up in the air, but we couldn't get the wheels locked down. So we flew around Kwajalein, for probably a couple hours. And we were tilting the wings, and we're going up and down with the wheels to try and get them to catch and lock, and it didn't lock. So we were really getting ready to land on the beach, and there was water in the water, and then the wheels, we finally got them locked down. So we went and landed, and the ground crew there worked the wheels over a little bit in the landing gear to make it lock. So we took off the next morning, and then we flew to Guam and the Marianas. Guam, Tinian, Saipan, pretty famous islands. And just went from there. The next day we went down to Peleliu in the Palau Islands. And that was going to be our base. So we were at the Peleliu for about a month, very hot, at least 113, up to close to 130 every day. And so as soon as we landed the airplanes, we'd have to fill it with gas, because in just an hour you couldn't touch it to fill it up with gas. And then it felt good to get up in the air. It's colder up there too. So, but the only thing we did there was there was a big island not too far from where we were, Japanese island, Babeltop they called it, and we made sure that no planes went in and out of there, or no ships went in and out of there. But we were just there about a month, and then we went up to Tinian in the Marianas, and we were there for more than a month. When we were there, one of the things, one of our planes got shot down, and they got a signal from the guys that had got in a raft, and so we were going to. Our plane was picked to go and look for them, and we carried supplies and stuff with extra rafts and stuff we could drop for them if they, could need it or something. So the next morning we left like 2 a.m. So we'd be out because this place was estimated to be 600 miles from Tinian. And
Where the raft was?
Yeah, the raft. And when you got 600 miles of ocean and one little raft, it's really tough. But we used the radar and visual, everybody was looking and stuff. And we went all day. They had a route planned out, search route to cover everything. So we went on that all day, never found them. And the time was getting late, and we'd used a lot of gas. We actually had extra gas with us, 600 extra gallons up in one of the bomb bays. We still had bombs with us too. And we had 600 gallons, and we were getting low, and it was getting dark. We'd been there we were all the way out there at sunrise, and we flew all day and didn't find anything. It was getting dark, and we were getting worried about gas and everything. So the pilot decided to head for home, Tinian. So we're heading back to Tinian, and now it's dark. And we had a radar, crank down radar that cranked down underneath the airplane and was good for 100 miles. And catch anything within 100 miles. So we were going along, and the pilot, not the pilot, but the navigator says to put down the radar because we should be getting close to the 100 miles distance from Tinian, and he wanted to be sure we're going right. So we dropped that down, and then they said we're 100 miles away now, and there was nothing on the radar. We went down to 75 miles, and there was nothing on the radar. We went down to 50 miles, and there was nothing on the radar. And we had a radio compass. If the radio worked, it should tell us what direction, because we were talking to Tinian. That didn't work that day. So we were on our own. So, but we were able to talk to him, and the Tinian guy said, "We'll put on our searchlight." They had a little searchlight, not a very, very good one, because it was just not. They hadn't been there that long on the island to get all the kind of stuff they'd like to get there. So we had that searchlight in mind, and everybody's looking in all directions in the dark now, looking for any kind of light or any kind of thing, or if the radar would come up with something. And nothing on the radar all the way to when we should have been right on top of Tinian. There was nothing within 100 miles. So, but then I thought I saw a little flash of light off to the side, and I reported it to the pilot, and he said, "Everybody looked that way." So everybody's looking that way, and nobody saw anything, not me nor them. So the pilot said, "Let's take a vote. Should we go the way the navigators got it going, or where Jake saw the light?" And everybody voted to go turn and go where I saw the light. And so the pilot made a 90-degree turn to the port side, left side, and in about maybe 10 minutes, or I couldn't tell you exactly, the navigator says, "Land 110 miles straight ahead." So we're going that way, and all the time we're going there. We're not sure if it's a Japanese island or if it's Tinian or what. But after we got, closer, then we realized it was Tinian, and we were able to come in, and we landed, used up all our extra gas and everything, and we landed. We went down to the end of the runway, and we left the plane there. Didn't have enough gas, I don't think, to go park it where they wanted us to park it. So that was about the most exciting thing on Tinian. And from Tinian we went to Iwo Jima. And Iwo Jima, we were the first bombers into Iwo Jima. There was some fighter planes there, but we were the first bombers into Iwo.
How long after that, or how long after the Marines was that?
Well, what they were still fighting on Iwo, and all they had was barbed wire around the runway, and everything else was open warfare. So the first night there, they put up some tents on the runway, inside the perimeter of the barbed wire, and because they couldn't put us outside the tents, outside the wire, because they were still fighting there. Anyway, it gets later, and most guys are asleep because we've been having long flights and stuff. Everybody's real tired. But I was awake, and another guy was awake, and I heard footsteps right outside the tent, right by my cot, because we had some cots set up there. And the footstep was right outside the tent. I could hear it that close. And the other guy, I told him And I told him, you watch those two sides of the tent, and I'll watch these two sides of the tent. And we'll lay on our cots. We laid on our cots all night with our 38s in our hand, you know, waiting. We never went to sleep or anything. And in the morning, we got out of the tent. Nothing happened to us. But then we found out everybody in the next tent was dead. And a little later, we found out that everybody in the other tents were dead too. So maybe 8, 9 tents like that. And we were the only one that had got live guys in it. The Japs must have come in with a number of guys because they couldn't have silenced all those guys, just one guy going from one tent to one tent. They had to pretty much do it as a group and get out of there. Years later, I met a guy at Walmart, and saw my hat and stuff and started talking. I mentioned Iwo Jima and stuff, and he said, yeah, I think I was the guy that let him in my area to get through his area. So he'd been living all these years realizing that because he didn't do his job that maybe 25 guys were dead or something like that.
So he was on guard at the barbed wire?
Huh?
He was a guard at the barbed wire?
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they had them spaced around, and they were terrific guys, Marines, most of them Marines. If they saw anything moving at night, they would shoot at it, because every once in a while at night you'd hear the machine gun go off, and the little while, then it'd be real quiet, and then you'd hear a pop, pop. The Marine who had shot out there in the dark would crawl on his belly out to the spot there, and if the guys were still there and they're still living or really hurt bad or something, then he'd shoot them and put them out of misery and stuff.
Hold on a second, then we get a train. Is that going to mess up the recording?
I hear him thinking, yeah.
That must have been hard for that guy.
Oh, it was, yeah, you could see it on him. It was still, yeah. That's worse than being shot.
Yeah. So was it from Iwo Jima that you did that run where the two fighter jets came at you?
It was from Iwo, but the two fighter jets were right out of Japan. Okay. We saw them coming off of the island. We were all the way right by Japan by then. But before that, on the way up there from Iwo, we spotted a decent-sized Jap ship, and we were flying real low because we did everything real low. And when we spotted that ship, I think we were so low that they didn't catch us on radar right away because we got closer. And then when they did catch us, they tried to turn the ship to face us because it'd make it a smaller target, you know. But we got them in there. We dropped three bombs. The first one hit the water and went right into the side of the ship. Yeah. Well, yeah, we dropped three bombs, and we were so low that the first bomb hit the water and went right into the side of the ship, and the next one went right down must have hit the engine room or something because it big black smoke right away, and the next one went over the top because we went right by the ship, you know. But we actually have to, when we drop those things, we have to lift up. So if they explode, they won't drop us down. We actually lost one ship, one of our planes, because we had about a second and a half delayed fuse on them when they hit. So we would get past them a little farther. And one of them didn't had the right fuses in there, and they blew up the ship, and the ship went up and blew them up. So we lost one there. Yeah, it was after we flew around the ship a little while to make sure it was going to go down, because and a lot of guys were in the water. In fact, when we were on the way in, we could see them jumping off the side. And our bow gunner, a young kid like myself from farm in Kansas, was a quiet, unassuming guy earlier, but he had heard that his best friend had been captured by the Japanese, and they had taken him and tied his hands behind a tree and used him for bayonet practice alive. And after that, all he could think of was killing Japanese. And he at that where the guys were still in the water, he was begging the pilot to go down closer so he could get those guys in the water. But the pilot didn't do it. So when we were sure the ship was going down, we kept going up to Japan. And then when we were up in Japan, inside of land and everything, we saw these couple of fighters come up against us. And instead of coming at us on the side, they pulled way up in front and then came at us, straight at us. We thought, well, they're going to be probably kamikazes, but they weren't. They dropped phosphorus, and they're hoping that it would hit the plane and start us on fire. But it didn't hit anything. So then they went out and they came on each side from us and stuff a couple times, and then they had to head for home because they were smoking black smoke on the back of them, both of them. So we didn't get credit for shooting them down because you got to see them hit the water to get a credit. All we got was they called probables. So, but then the pilot said, "Yeah, we better head for home now." Yeah, we had a lot of different things from Iwo Jima. In our recount for the official, we were credited with 6 ships sunk, and those 2 planes probably sunk, shot down. One of the other things we did at Iwo was, this was getting later on in the war. Our plane, I don't know who else, was assigned to go up and down the coast of Japan, all 3 big islands, and we had to fly close enough so they would shoot at us. And then so for 13 straight days, we flew up and down the coast of Japan with them shooting at us, so we could mark on maps where they shot at us every day. If they shot once and not again, then we figured it was a movable gun emplacement. So we had it all knocked. Everything on all 3 islands we had pretty well situated where the main big artillery and stuff was, big anti-aircraft guns and stuff. So, well, maybe before that I should say, there was one building in Japan on Honshu, that's the island with Tokyo, that our plane alone was going to make the run on it. I think sort of scare them or try and do it without too much preparation against us. Anyway, we had one of our planes flew like co-pilot or watching over in case any fighters or something come against us. They were our helpers, so we did the bombing. And they said that we went in and bombed it, and the anti-aircraft was really tough. And when we got back to Iwo Jima, the other guys on the plane that were flying, watching over us, came running over to see us because they wanted to see how bad we were shot up. They said the anti-aircraft was so heavy that they couldn't see us. And so they thought we were lucky to get back. They came over and they looked over the whole plane, and there was not a peephole in any of it. So that was protected from the the higher ups. Yeah. But on that 13-day bit, yeah, we were shot at every day for 13 days, and we spotted a lot of stuff beside the guns and stuff. We saw ships that had protective coloring over it, stuff like that, in certain harbors and stuff. So after that was all done, just a few weeks, maybe 3 weeks later, Admiral Halsey comes by, just going down along the islands, and used all those targets that we put up for him, and
Got 'em all?
yeah. So we actually thought that there was no need for the atom bomb, because we thought we really had them. Because we couldn't even sink a sub if one was in near the Japanese islands, because it might be ours. We were really, they were gone. I mean, they had everything was ready to come in there, and they were bringing troops from Europe and everything that were going to go for invasion of Japan and stuff. Then they dropped the atom bomb, and we didn't know anything about that. But the second one, we saw it being loaded on Tinian, because when we were at Iwo Jima, the air is so bad on Iwo Jima from the open sulfur pits and everything, that every once in a while we'd have to go down to Tinian and get our lungs cleaned out again a little bit, because it was really bad to stay there.
So you guys knew something was up.
Huh?
You knew something big was going on that day.
Yeah, but we saw we were right next on the same runway as loading the B-29 with the atom bomb.
Enola Gay?
Big thing, yeah. What else did we do?
But when those guys left, they didn't come. Did they come back to the same place, or did they land somewhere else?
No, they came back to Iwo.
But they took them away right away, right?
Yeah. No, they didn't come back to Iwo. I mean, they came. Yeah, the B-29s only landed at Iwo. The B-29s only landed at Iwo Jima if they were hurt over Japan, because Iwo Jima was halfway from Guam, Tinian, and Saipan, where they come from, up to Japan, and Iwo was halfway, so they would come there. And earlier, the runways were still dirt, that the Japanese had dirt runways. And one of the 29s came in, and something was wrong, because when he hit the ground, he changed his direction a little bit somehow. I don't know if he got into a hole or something, because the runways were getting beat up, and it pulled him off to the side, and the P-51 Mustangs were all, you know how you see them on a movie, how they're all alongside ready to go. And he took, I think, 12 of those big, nice P-51s, and just like a mother hen, and covered over them, and then it all went up in flames. And the planes, the fighters were loaded with machine gun, ammo and everything, and some had bombs on them, and so for 6 hours the whole island was hiding behind any little hill they could, because the machine guns were going off, the bombs were going off, and the fire was just immense. It melted the big airplanes and everything just down onto a little pile on the ground.
Could they do anything about it, or did they just wait till it burned out?
Oh, they couldn't do anything about it. They waited till it burnt out. Yeah. No, we spent about 6 hours hiding under any little hill we could, because they were going everywhere.
Was it Tinian or was it Iwo Jima where you had that Easter service?
Oh, that was on Peleliu.
Oh, Peleliu.
Yeah. In fact, the chaplain that did the service, he was the guy that became famous for his praise the Lord and pass the ammunition, because he'd been on a ship, and the guy that was loading up the guns got killed, and so he stepped in there and he helped loading the guns and came up with that praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. Yeah. Oh, going. Can I go backwards?
Sure. Yeah, he can
Yeah.
splice this and put things in order.
Yeah. When we went from California to Hawaii, most of us went by ship, and then the pilot, co-pilot, navigator took the plane, because they weren't sure that the navigators could find Hawaii. So that was very sort of telling you what kind of experience the navigators had. So, but they all made it, which was good. I should have read my book a little. I gave both of those books. You got one and Glenn got one, didn't he?
I think he only made. I think Julie just made the one for you.
Oh yeah, it wasn't the book. Yeah, it was the.
Oh yeah, the frame.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, so after the Enola Gay took off and dropped the bomb, then.
Yeah. Well, we had served our time anyway, and we were on our way home. Yeah. So we. Oh, that was a little experience too. Come to think about it, we were. We went from Iwo Jima to Kwajalein in a big typhoon, I think they call it. I can't remember. Yeah, it was typhoons out there. And one had gone by, and so they thought that we ought to wait a day. But we were anxious to go home, and they said it's at least 600 miles away anyway. So we took off, and we're going along, and usually on flights like that, we fly at 8,000 feet. Well, we're going along, and all of a sudden we hit no air, and the plane starts going down, but then it hits good solid air. And we kept going, and then we hit some more bad air. We're too far to go back, so we kept going, and we went from 8,000 to 2,000 feet. So we had dropped over a mile. But then it got that low, close to the water, then we had solid air again, and we were able to keep going, and we made that Johnston Island. Yeah. But yeah, we actually lost rivets and stuff, because when we hit no air, those wings were just, fighting for air. So they were going, then we popped some rivets on that. That was pretty scary. I didn't think we were going to make it home.
Did you have to get repaired before you can keep going?
Pardon?
Did you have to get repaired to keep
No,
going?
we just flew pretty slow.
Oh. Well, they flew slow anyway.
Actually, from we got to Hawaii, we were there for almost a week, and we got our medals were given us and stuff. And then we left one afternoon to head for California, and in 14 hours we made California. We left in the afternoon and went all night into the morning before we got to California. 14 hours, but that was quite an experience. Guys were, in the plane, and when we got to California and landed, some of the guys kissed the ground, and everything, and then they all lined up by me, and they took turns and said they thanked me for being on that plane, because they knew they wouldn't have been back if God hadn't been watching over us. that was sort of a meaningful time, actually.
Well, there's from seeing that light in the distance, and
Oh yeah.
and from the
Oh yeah.
aircraft guns shooting at
Even
you.
the wheels
Mhm.
not being locked down. That was yeah. And I spotted the two fighters coming at up in Japan too. So
And that one with the kamikaze going over you in the fog.
oh that was another that was another time.
Where was that at?
That was right over Tokyo.
Okay.
Yeah, we were over Tokyo, and we were in a heavy fog bank. And me being up on top, I saw this thing go just right over us. I reported it to the pilot, and he said, "Let's get out of here." So then we turned and headed back to Iwo Jima right away. Yeah.
Yeah, I think God was watching out for you.
Oh, a lot of times, yeah. Oh yeah, he put extra gas in the tank for us.
Imagine the legacy that wouldn't have been here.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
That didn't go that way.
I think of that a little bit. Yeah.
All your kids and
Yeah. Yeah,
your
we're
grandkids and your great
we're
grandkids.
sometimes in the morning we pray for the whole family, we're person to person, even Paul's kids and everything. And then the great grandkids, great grandkids. Boy, we've been blessed in a lot of ways. Unbelievable. Almost always had work all these years. I think of Jeff being out of work all that time, we'd have been dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got home to California, and that was your 20th birthday, right?
We landed on my 20th birthday, yeah. September 16, 1945. That was, for me, it was extra special. Yeah.
That's 75 years this year.
Yeah, it'll be 75 years in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
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 And on the way home, when we landed in California, that first night, went into San Diego, and there was a little group of Navy guys holding a service there. And I thought, boy, those guys are really kids.
Yeah.
We felt like old guys. It was amazing how the difference that we felt between the guys our age that had not been in the war to the guys that were in the war. Yeah.
They were all new guys?
Pardon?
They were all new guys? The Navy guys, they were all new?
Oh, I don't know how long they'd been in the Navy, but yeah, that was what's his name? Names some Christian outfits that worked.
Navigators or?
Navigators, yeah. And Dawson Trotman, the head of Navigators. When we went by ship from California to Hawaii, Dawson Trotman was on that ship. Yeah, and that was his first cross Pacific ship that he was going to do Sunday services and stuff on. So yeah.
And how long were you in California before heading back to Great Lakes?
I don't think more than a few days. Oh, that was good too. We went by a train. Went by train, and the officers had sleepers, and us enlisted men sat in our chairs the whole way. 3 days. But anyway, there happened to be one sleeper that was vacant. They didn't have an officer for it, so they said, let's look at the records and let one of the enlisted guys sleep in a sleeper. I got to sleep in a sleeper. The guy's reading. Oh, he said, yeah, well, this guy, he deserves it. So I slept in a nice sleeper sleeping car, and the rest of the guys were said. But I spent the days in the
Yeah.
with the other guys, yeah. But yeah, the Lord was blessing me before I even got home.
Yeah, good. And then how long till you were actually discharged from then?
Well, I was at when we finally got to Great Lakes. I was there 3 days.
And then done?
Yeah, and the first night there, I jumped the fence and went home.
Uh-huh.
So the next morning, my dad drove me up there, and I had to jump the fence to get back in.
And then you, when did you? It was after that that you were discharged already when the Cubs were in the World Series, right?
Oh yeah, the first night home, a guy from church, Ed Erickson, called me and said, "You want to try and get in and see the Cubs in the World Series?" So I said, "Yeah." So I went with him, and we stood outside the bleachers, hoping to get in, because a lot of people already in line out there, and we got in, and that was about the end of the line there, and because there were still guys behind us and that didn't get in. Yeah. So I saw Game 6, and the Cubs won. So there was 3 games apiece,
Uh-huh.
but they lost the 4th game, or the
Seven.
7th game, yeah. I was surprised that he even knew I was home.
Who? Oh, your
Guy
friend?
from church, yeah.
Uh-huh. And then you had to wait, what, 70 years to see him in there again?
Oh yeah, probably about 70 years, yeah. That was pretty exciting to be able to go with 4 tickets. So Mom went, and Mark and Glenn both went. Yeah.
That wasn't the World Series, though.
Pardon?
That wasn't the World Series, though. That was when they were doing the,
No, yeah, that wasn't the World Series,
the
no.
Veterans Appreciation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I got some pictures from that.
Yeah, somebody, one of you guys wrote Cubs to ask if I could be throw out the first pitch.
Oh,
That's how we got contact. They called me.
okay.
Yeah. So it's all done, and I don't hear from him. And when he finally did call, he said, "Yeah, we got enough guys to throw out the first pitch." And he said, "You're on," and he gave a certain date. And I found out that I was the only one going to be out there. I thought when they did something like that, they had a number of guys out there. No,
Yeah.
he said, "No, you're it." He said, "You're it."
Yeah. Huh.
Oh, and they were playing the Cardinals, and that's always the biggest crowd of the year, 42,000. And when he announced that I came from Iwo Jima, and I actually saw the Cubs in the World Series, the place went really crazy. They all stood up and they were waving, and even on the rooftops across the street, they were waving. Oh, they treated us nice. Parked in the Cubs parking lot. We entered the executive entrance. They walked us to our seats and everything. So, yeah, they were really nice about it.
Well, good.
Hey, you're remembering more of this stuff than I can remember.
Well, I have pictures of that. So.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, Mark or Glenn, I forget which, sent pictures over from that day.
yeah. Oh yeah, quite a few people said they saw me on because I think Mark sent out a lot of
Yeah,
stuff. The guys in California saw it.
yeah.
Oh, and we stopped across the street here one day. Not long after. There's a shoe store right across right across the street here. And the man comes in. He said, "Oh, were you the guy on TV?"